So let's go back to what you think realtors do, like for real.
Not a lot, bro.
No, I know. Listen, because I know there's this undertone.
Let me tell you what they do.
I know there's this undertone between attorneys. Yeah, exactly. See, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
There's some bitterness there.
100%.
I went to college for how long?
100%. That's exactly what happens. Wait a second. This guy made 30 grand on this transaction.
On the next installment of the show, Jesus will tell us why law school is a waste of money.
All right, guys. I always ask, and I am sorry. I should know. What episode are we in right now? 33. Larry Bird, baby. Larry Bird. So I want to start off by thanking you for finally posting his book. I greatly appreciate that.
Yes,
I mean, finally.
You know,
yeah.
In the capacity,
Yeah, you know. So we have a couple interesting topics. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who's been commenting. You guys have been giving us a lot of, I don't know, joy in our hearts.
Joy, laughter. Human.
We love the negative ones, so keep those coming. The positive ones, we just glance over. We really like to focus on the negative ones. So let's continue to do that. So
it's like mean tweets.
Yeah.
Remember that? The Jimmy Kimmel mean tweets? Those are the best.
If they would know how happy we get whenever we see one of those, they probably wouldn't send them anymore. I see them coming in, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to save this one for later when I'm sitting down with a drink.
Being insulted in broken English is amazing. With bad grammar.
Today you were called Captain Obvious.
Captain
That
Obvious.
was just,
Yeah, Captain Obvious. Captain of the Obvious.
Of the Obvious.
Yeah. It's Mr. Captain Obvious to you, buddy.
Yeah. Listen, so what's the topic today? I know we had one thing that's been been brought up a lot, especially here in Florida. So what is it that?
Well, it's just because it's just a Florida law.
That usually happens. Right?
Yeah.
People in Georgia are not that concerned about a Florida law.
They're not.
So what is it? Let's start with that.
It was like a nationwide conspiracy that has just been manifested itself in legislation in Florida, or if it's just really a Florida thing.
It is so well. The other states are actually now moving to enact similar statutes, but I think we have the distinction of being the first, and it's the what do they call it? The Conveyances to Foreign Entities Act. Conveyances to Foreign Entities Act, and it's codified at Florida statutes. Section 692.201 through 692.205, and it's a hot topic right now. Went into effect July 1, 2023.
So what do I tell my agent that is Chinese and Venezuelan, and she's calling me frantic?
That she should move to Mars.
Get out of Florida.
Maybe Earth, because on Mars they still don't have any.
They're not yet.
More equal opportunity on Mars.
Yeah.
Equal opportunity.
In fact, they're looking at. I read the other day. They only need 13 people to start an effective colony on Mars.
Oh, really?
So.
Yeah, but they would have to send at least 130 over there because most of them are going to die on the way.
I think that's making some assumptions about the 13 people that maybe we're not at liberty to do.
I agree. But yeah, the Conveyances to Foreign Entities Act. So it's just, it's got two main components, right? The foreign entity or foreign principal part, and then the affected properties. And, putting it simply, it just goes as follows. There are certain countries of concern that we've identified in Florida where we don't want foreign principals, as defined in the statute, from those countries of concern to be able to buy.
But how did Venezuela make it on that shit list? Because, what's the last time we got attacked, in any kind of way by a Venezuelan?
No, it's just that Venezuela's I think it's a
communist,
hostile government.
It's a hostile government, and it's very wealthy. It's got a lot of petroleum, so their left-leaning propensities really annoy us here.
Yeah, but they've never really. The Chinese, every once in a while you get a cyber attack. You get, there's no secret that they are constantly, for many, many years, trying to attack us and find any kind of opening, right? But what's the last time a Venezuelan did anything It's,
I
it's,
think maybe
it's weird.
It's the what appears to be some sort of collaboration that exists between them and other hostile players. There's definitely been more of a closening of the relationship between China and Venezuela recently. And so if you're going to take and put, I mean, I would think if you're going to put China on that list, Venezuela has to do that. And considering the presence that Venezuela has as far as population, there's a lot of people from Venezuela in this country who largely hate the government of Venezuela.
Yeah,
now.
right.
But
aside from fucking up the traffic here in Doral, I don't think they've really done anything negative.
although I think that could be considered an act of terrorism, considering how bad the
If
traffic is.
if that's why they did it, then I'm all in. But you know, Richard brought up. So I hate when Richard's right, but you know, every once in a while he'll get something
My
right.
cross.
You know, because you said no, you said it right off the beginning that it's not gonna last. It's considered it'll be considered unconstitutional, right?
Yeah, you know what? I may be wrong though. I mean, first of all, almost immediately upon the law's passage, there were already groups that were going to come out against it. Lawsuits have been filed. There's a case pending in federal court, and last week, or I think it was the week before now. So the plaintiffs in the case, they asked the judge to enter an injunction, right? A temporary injunction. If you're watching at home, that just means like a pause. So if we're litigating about the constitutionality of a particular statute and you move for a temporary injunction, you're asking the court to prevent the implementation of the law while we fight about it. So the law went into effect July 1, and you're going to court and you're saying, Judge, I know the law has been passed, I know it's in effect, but we'd like you to enjoin implementation of the statute while we litigate it. Okay. Now, in most cases, when a temporary injunction is granted, that's a good indication, a decent indication that the lawsuit has traction, okay, that the lawsuit has legs, because judges are reluctant to grant temporary injunctions if they don't think the lawsuit.
Yeah, why waste any time on
right,
it?
Right. So a couple weeks ago, the federal judge in the case denied the plaintiff's request for a temporary injunction. In other words, the law is in effect and it needs to be implemented. Okay, so it's the law of the state at present, and so that puts closing agents, realtors, people in this business in the position of, number one, they have some obligation. It's questionable how much to be able to identify that, hey, this is a situation in which the statute's going to apply, and then there's a form of affidavit which. Actually, the statute puts it on the Florida Real Estate Commission to create the affidavit that would implement the rule. It's basically an affidavit that's going to say, hey, I'm the buyer and I'm not a foreign principal as defined in the act. Or if I am a foreign principal, here's why the act doesn't apply. Okay, and so that's a one-pager. It's a form affidavit, and it's got to be signed in every single real estate transaction in Florida.
Okay, that's fine though.
So, there's already a form of affidavit out there. It's been circulating, and we've been using it since July 1.
So I'm curious, what are the exceptions that would allow somebody from one of those countries to buy?
So there's a couple exceptions. Number one, being from the country in and of itself is not enough. Right? So you have to be from the country of concern, and you have to be domiciled in the country of concern. Okay, and domiciled is a term of art. We don't just mean you hang out there from time to time or you hang out here. You have to live in Venezuela, for example, or Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. There's six countries of concern. So you have to be from there, and you have to be domiciled there. Okay, so you're a true foreign national in the United States if you have a lawful permanent residency, okay, or if you're a citizen of the United States. Obviously, you could be born in Venezuela, but if you're a United States citizen, the statute would not apply. You could be born in Venezuela, you can be a citizen of Venezuela, but if you have a lawful permanent residency in the United States, the law does not apply, okay? If you're here on any kind of temporary visa or things like that, the law does apply, right? If you're domiciled there. Now, let's say you're from Venezuela.
If you put it like that, though, and I know you're against it in many ways, right? But if you start adding those filters to it and adding those filters, if you're not this, if you're not, it starts to make sense. Anybody who's from that country that does not fit any of those characteristics should be kind of looked at a little bit in depth, and should be restricted in some kind of way.
So it's not accurate to say that I disagree with it. What happens is in law school, they teach us about what they call the bundle of rights with respect to property. Yep. Okay, and I see it more as a restriction on the right of Americans to do what they want with their property.
And that's what you told me, and that's what kind of made sense to me, because when I initially told you about it, I'm like, he's like, dude, you said it's unconstitutional. I'm like, what the fuck do we care about the Constitution for somebody who's from another country? It doesn't even make any
Potentially
sense.
unconstitutional.
Right, and then you said, well, not. It's really towards the seller's right to be able to sell to whoever the hell they want.
Right.
I'm like,
Precludes
oh
their
wow,
right.
okay, that does make sense.
Right.
you know?
Now, I'm not sure that that's been raised. Actually, I haven't read the pleadings in the federal case, and the plaintiffs are not. I'm not sure, I said, because I haven't read the pleadings, but I don't think the plaintiffs are like U.S. citizens that are traveling under that theory. I think that would be an interesting theory under which to have the statute scrutinized. So, yeah, I mean, my bigger issue with it is the restriction on sale. Now, quite frankly, sometimes there are countervailing or prevailing concerns about why we might want to do it. So I think the agricultural the restriction on agricultural land makes a little bit more sense, and definitely, on the critical infrastructure. The problem is that the way the statute defines critical infrastructure, I mean, it's a lot. So, and we didn't discuss that part. So, the statute's got two parts, basically. Are you a foreign principal as defined in the statute? And if you are you buying affected property, right? And affected property is either anything agricultural or any property within 10 miles of what the statute defines as critical infrastructure. And the list of critical infrastructure, I mean, it's long. I got my trusty cheat sheet here. It's a chemical manufacturing facility, a refinery, an electrical power plant, a water treatment facility or wastewater treatment plant, a liquid natural gas terminal, a telecommunications central switching office, a gas processing plant, a seaport, a spaceport, or an airport. So in Miami,
Well, let's talk about right here, right now.
that's a lot.
Yeah. Throw McDonald's on there, and pretty much that's about the only thing
Exactly.
left.
If you're within 5 miles of McDonald's, you're out of gas.
Listen, you're right here. We got Central Command, so
Right.
nowhere in Doral. Put it
Nowhere
that
in
way.
Doral.
We got a dump. We got water treatment place. We got the airport. Mm-hmm. We have
No,
the
they put an
Central
exit.
Command.
DeSantis
just
looked at the
Dade.
map and he was like, "Where are the Venezuelans?" Like Doral X. Yeah.
Did he leave him
Adon
Weston?
Pang, you can't put it near Adon
Did he
Pang.
leave him Weston?
I don't know.
Weston
I don't
might
know.
be.
There might be.
Weston
Weston
might
might be sufficiently remote. I don't know.
Sufficiently Everglades enough.
Yeah. So the statute is, the lawsuit's going to continue. I don't, this isn't the type of case you settle, right? You gotta take the case to trial and through summary judgment, and we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think it's actually getting some traction, and like I said, other states are now looking to impose similar statutes. So.
I mean, it's not really unprecedented. I mean, there's limitations in lots of other countries as to who can buy and the nationality of the people.
100%.
I mean, Mexico, you can't. Any coastal land, period.
One of our super politically motivated friends was like, "Well, you can't buy any. Americans can't buy in China," and I was like, "The Chinese can't buy in China."
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get where you're coming from. It's not the best example, but I follow. Okay,
I'll give you a list of examples.
Hey, since we're in the lawsuit, I guess subject right now, kind of like what's happening with that class action lawsuit against realtors and their commission and stuff.
Oh man, I'm
You heard about this one, Richard?
I
or no?
have, yeah.
It's interesting because
gonna
that
be
one is gaining traction.
Yeah.
It seems like, and it's surprising to me because it's going to put sellers and actually the secondary market creates a real problem for the secondary market because of all the things we've talked about. The secondary market's underwriting criteria.
So can we talk a little bit about specifically who hasn't heard about it? What is it exactly that they're claiming?
Richard probably can explain this better, but
No, I want to listen in.
okay, cool. Well, then I'll tell you what I do know, because this is one of those things that I paid indirect attention to. It's basically they're trying to make it where it's no longer required for listing agents to secure a co-brokerage commission from the seller when they list a property. So right now, you have to, in order to put a property in the MLS, you have to offer a co-brokerage commission.
Okay.
And that is a cost that's passed along to the seller. The lawsuit basically states, like, why should the seller have to pay for buyers to have their agent? And to me, the obvious issue winds up being that
Well, that it balances out when they buy.
it sort of does, and theoretically, the appraised value of a home is respective of the fact that there was a commission that was paid. So, the price is $280, but obviously what the actual seller received is less than that. But the issue to me is if you're now going to say, hey, look, you must list this property in the MLS, offering no co-brokerage commission, and the lawsuit is basically making that agents are not allowed to not show it, even though they're offering no compensation. It's going to force buyers' agents to get buyer brokerage relationship agreements signed and get their commission from the buyer. The problem is the secondary market doesn't allow the Fannie Mae, all the folks that make the loans, FHA as well.
They're gonna have to adjust it, or the market's gonna absolutely
They have
collapse.
to change because the buyer is not allowed to take and pay a commission and had that be wrapped up in the mortgage. So they'd have to pay that out of cash. What's the big issue with buyers always is they have very limited cash on the way in. So it's kind of a seismic shift.
Who's the one leading that lawsuit? Do you know?
Somebody that's got nothing better to do with their time. They're upset that as a seller, they were forced to pay the commission to the buyer's agent, who they think does little to
A
no
guy
work.
like that wakes up in the morning and wants to just completely fuck up because there's nothing beneficial. And I'm not saying it just because commission's going to be paid. We're just going to figure out another way to get paid on it. I mean, that's just
Well, I mean,
banks are going to have to adjust to it and everything. So you're just adjusting a whole business.
it
just because-
generally hurts the consumer because now the buyer's ability to make sure that they have representation is going to be precluded or harmed, not precluded, but harmed by the fact that now they have to pay for that out of cash. It's no longer an amount that can be financed into the purchase price of the property, because if the seller pays the commission, that amount, that total amount, is wrapped up in that 96.5% financing that they're going to get from FHA, right? If the buyer has to pay, the buyer is going to put their 3.5% down and have to pay $10,000 in commission on top of that, or whatever the number is, to that agent. There's some feeling that'll somehow reduce buyers' commissions. I think what it actually does is it harms the seller, because the seller is going to have fewer buyers available that can afford to buy their home,
Right. because
they're not. And I mean, if they leave it as an option to the seller and agents are properly
So why are you
trained,
saying it's getting legs? Well, you just
because they're actually the judges are giving them these injunctions. The judges are agreeing to different things throughout.
Richard,
the
have you
course
seen
of-
anything on that or no?
Well, I mean, the case is pending. I mean, I think the longer the case remains pending, the more problematic it is for the status quo, right? Because typically, in a lawsuit, and it's a misnomer because everybody now is on top of like what happens in cases, right? For obvious reasons, but there's two ways that lawsuits go away. Okay, the first is they go away with non-dispositive motions, okay, meaning motions that don't address the merits. Okay, so you hear it all the time. I don't know why the news reports on motions to dismiss. Okay, so-and-so filed a motion to dismiss. Okay, listen, only in exceptional circumstances are those permanent. Okay, especially in civil court. When you file a motion to dismiss, you're just saying that there's something technically wrong with the other side's complaint. And if the court agrees, the case is dismissed, but it's usually dismissed with what we call leave to amend, meaning the other side gets 20 days, 30 days, whatever the judge says, to just bring it back. Okay, so a motion to dismiss in civil court does not test the right or wrong of the allegations. It tests
merits,
the technicality. Okay, so it's
Of
not
the way the case was brought forth.
right.
basically.
It says, hey, even if you
So the attorney fucked up almost. I'm bringing
it's
it.
just the way they plead it. Right,
technically,
something like that.
Some little technicality that they
so
missed.
the standard on a motion to dismiss in civil court is literally judge taking everything that the other side says is as true in the four corners of the complaint. There's no relief that can be granted to the other side. And if the judge agrees, then what happens is you typically get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 additional bites at the apple.
Yeah, that many?
There's no limit. Okay, there's no set limit.
But usually
okay?
the judge kind of
What
gets
happens
tired
is
of it.
After a little while, if the pleadings become what's called incapable of amendment, then you might get a motion to dismiss granted with prejudice. With prejudice means forever. You cannot bring it back. Okay,
Right.
but generally speaking, motions to dismiss are without prejudice. Okay, and you can amend, and you can amend multiple times. So that's one way. But sometimes, though, admittedly, a case might get dismissed, and then the incentive to bring it back goes away. So the case isn't refiled because maybe a settlement is entered or something like that. Okay, but the other way cases go away is via an adjudication on the merits, meaning a judge or a jury gets all the way through it and decides who's right and who's wrong. And then on the basis of who's right and who's wrong, the case goes away. Now, you might have heard, everybody understands, that there's something called you have the constitutional right to a trial by jury, but much like all Bill of Rights, it's not unlimited. So it's not in every case that you get to go to trial. Okay. In fact, one side or the other can seek to get rid of a case by what's called summary judgment. Okay, and summary judgment is an adjudication on the merits, and it's a motion that gets filed. And the rule there is that somebody says, Judge, even if you take all the evidence in the light most favorable to the other side, the party not seeking summary judgment, even if you give them every benefit of the doubt, no reasonable jury following the law can find for them. Therefore, we don't have to go to a jury trial. Your Honor can dispose of the case right now. Okay, and the summary judgment motion is a high standard. Okay, so in state court, it's more difficult to get summary judgment than in federal court, because state court judges they don't like to be reversed, and state court summary judgments come back often, okay, on appeal, because we have a preference for a trial by jury, but it's not a guaranteed right. Sure. So the reason why I say that the longer a case remains pending, the more legs it generally has, is because, and this is assuming that the litigants aren't just sitting there like doing nothing, but if the case is being litigated heavily and the case survives motions to dismiss, survives motions for summary judgment, that means now you're going to trial. So if you file a motion for summary judgment and the judge denies the motion, now you have to have, you have to look in the mirror, you have to have a serious conversation, because now you're going to a trial where, depending on where you are, state or civil court, or state or federal court, you're going to have 6 jurors, 12 jurors, regular people. They don't know the law. They're pissed off that they got to be there. Okay, they got to, who's going to pick up Timmy?
And they failed the intelligence test on actually getting to the...
on getting stricken.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
so some people want to serve on juries. I mean, they
Really?
love it. Yeah, man, they see it as like,
Holy shit.
In fact, there's a great movie on that Gene Hackman movie about like these lawsuits against big tobacco. I forget the name. Runaway Jury was the name of the movie.
All right.
And was these guys that would literally go around the country and try to get impaneled on these juries, so that they could have these vendettas against the it was actually gun industry, not tobacco.
Was that a John Cusack movie?
John Cusack,
Yeah,
Gene
yeah.
Hackman, Dustin Hoffman.
Wow, what a cast.
Oh no, it was a good movie.
So basically, what you're saying is the longer these go on, the more stress tested the cases have kind of been.
Yeah.
And so that there's
Yeah,
probably
and the
some
more
inroad.
likely that you'll end up in some form of settlement that will have industry-wide
Well, I mean, it's
implications.
a foregone conclusion. I guess there was a DOJ settlement that was reached,
and
with
they
the Realtor-
reneged, yeah.
and then the DOJ backed out, and they're trying to get the DOJ back in because I guess they figured that's maybe their best solution. And if you look at some of the things that they were promising in there, they are going to take an effect the way that we do real estate on a daily basis.
Like what?
There was requirements for disclosure from buyers agents. You're no longer a say that the seller pays you. There's certain things that you can't say. You can't refuse a listing that's going to offer no buyer commission. The MLS is going to be required to allow listings to go in the MLS that have no co-brokerage commission. I mean, because the reality of it is you have to realize realtors, that MLS control they have really does create
Yeah, that's everything.
it does create control of the inventory. And so if you're limiting compensation, I mean, I get the argument. The problem is it's going to hurt the consumer. So, I mean, to me, the consumer action groups need to be filing a counter lawsuit saying that, hey, look, this is hurting us and our ability to sell our homes. That would be the next step, I would think, but I'm not an attorney. But we do have somebody who is.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have a system similar to what, if these lawsuits go all the way, and Rex, which is it's like a Texas-based alternative to the MLS. Like, they have these listings and they're not on the MLS, and that was part of their beef. So they're one of the plaintiffs, okay? And they were upset that their listings are discriminated against because they have lower commissions. Okay, so National Association of Realtors and all that.
Isn't that the free market though?
Yeah, but what they're saying is it's not very free when the MLS is has this kind of, I don't want to use the term monopoly, but when it has this grip on the industry, and then we can't get our listings on the MLS because the National Association of Realtors and the MLS people are preventing it because our commissions are lower. So what happens is if you are a buyer's agent, all of a sudden you're a fan of the co-brokerage system, with Rex, you're going to get less commission. So what you do is you strangle out these people like Rex so that they can't list their properties on the MLS. And so you basically have, like, if you want to be on the MLS, you got to be paying these, you have to have these high commission agreements basically.
Well, you could put it on Zillow, you could put it on, on Realtor.com, and you could put it anywhere, which arguably gets more traction than even the MLS.
I like that argument. It's kind of like, so if you're blocked on Twitter by Twitter, you just go post somewhere else.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You're dying to get into politics.
No, I'm just saying that I
just
like
can't
when
fucking
I
control
hear
yourself, huh?
when I hear these similarities in your arguments.
Yeah.
It was sitting back there.
I get so happy.
Waiting to bring that one forward.
He's not as he's normal. So,
Why?
No, but hold on. So what happens is in Europe they're basically dismantled co-brokerage, or maybe they never had it. Okay, but over there commissions are lower. Okay, as a general premise, and there are very few, if any, buyer agents. Okay, but what happens is over there each brokerage has like their own listings. So if you're a buyer, okay, without like this general database of places to go and people that have access to, let's say all the listings or as many as are possible, then to be a buyer and make sure you see the best possible property for you, you have to be calling You got to be calling multiple offices to make sure that you're getting the best sampling. Yeah, now it's true they pay less in commission over there. Their commission,
but they'll lose. The more eyes on a property, the more value you get. The more you get for the property. That's just supply and demand.
But that would require you to be a fan of the free market, which Europe is a little bit less of a flag waver on that front. They very much like to have things controlled and sort of, be nannied a little bit.
By the way, here, that's one of the problems we're having is that it's like everything else. It's like, look, I think less of the things that we see changing in this country in business and everything is less of it is a function of these ideological positions because people just don't think that much.
Nope.
It's just a function of the increasing desire for the nanny state.
Yeah.
Okay, like we just want everyone to have to take care of everything for us. So it's like, we don't want to force people to look around. Like everything you just said, like, well, man, if you can't get your listings on the MLS, you could go to Zillow, you go to Redfin, you go to this. It's like, listen, we don't want to make people think. We want everything to be fair. It's like a great book. There's a Kurt Vonnegut book, great book called Harrison Bergeron. 40 pages maybe, hysterical read. And it's about like this time in the not too distant dystopian future of the United States where that we have this, we have an entire government, office of the government called the United States Handicapper General. Okay, and the office's express purpose is to make everyone as equal as possible. So if you are a dancer and you are a wonderful dancer and you're very agile, then they'll weigh you down. You have to wear these weights so that you're no better than like the other dancers.
Sure.
Okay, and if you're very smart, okay, then they fit you with like this shock collar. And every few minutes you get shocked so that you can't have too many deep thoughts, so if like you're thinking real hard, it'll like shock you out of it, so that like you can't string together too many coherent thoughts,
Yeah.
And it sounds hysterical, but first of all, the book is a great book and it's brilliant. The concept of the book is brilliant. And these authors that wrote things like that, this book is not a new book, it's an old book. It ends with like
old like what?
How old? 60s maybe.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I'll tell you what, man. You read Hayek, the 1930s, the economist Hayek, and there are all these same kind of thing. Reading these guys from the 1930s, writing the stuff, seeing FDR and all the stuff that he did, and Stalin and all these guys, and then like their predictions and seeing how much of it came true and how much of it
it's
they
fascinating.
missed. Same thing with Rand. All these people. It's just.
But listen,
amazing.
Plato's Republic.
Yep.
Plato's most famous work is this exceedingly long book called The Republic. And in The Republic, what he does is he goes through and he ranks. He talks about. He analyzes every then known system of government. Okay, so he goes through monarchies, dictatorships, democracies, despotism, and he goes through and he ranks them. He discusses them and then he ranks them. And then he designs what he believes would be the perfect society, which is like Plato's Republic.
Right.
Okay, but and frankly, I don't think anybody would want to live in Plato's
No.
Republic. But that's not the point. The point is that contrary, and remember, this is, Greece is the birthplace of democracy. Plato would actually tell you that democracy is the worst form of government, horrific. He was absolutely not a fan. The only thing he thought was worse than democracy was despotism. Okay, and the reason for that is because he says that democracy, he basically says, it's a grand oversimplification, but he basically says that democracy is a system of government that's like for a fickle individual, a person who like one day is into health and fitness and the next day is into money. And one day he wakes up and he destroys himself on substances, and then the next day he wakes up and he's like only eating vegan and all these kind of
So
things.
basically Miami and Los
yeah,
Angeles.
I mean, it's fascinating. And
Okay.
he's got this whole little monologue on democratic man. And you read it. And by the way, this is written like 3,000 years ago.
yeah.
And it's like, holy shit, this is my neighbor. Like, you're reading it and it's incredible. It's incredible, the parallels. Because, these people understand humans, but, it's just so in democracy. And one of the best lines in it, he says something like, democracy, a perfect type of government trying to produce equality for equals and unequals alike.
Yeah.
And there are just some things that like you just can't you can't equalize them. And so, but that's what these people are trying to do. So Rex is like, we should all be able to be on the MLS. It doesn't matter 1%, 3%, doesn't matter what we charge. And people are like, no, we got to have transparency. And it's like, what do you care if the seller? It's like, listen, I'm coming to sell my house. You're the agent. We agree on 6%. I don't care. I got to pay you 6%. I don't care if you take the 6%.
So how
and
is the
give it away.
Chinese law? How's that law? That you considered potentially unconstitutional at one point, right? Wouldn't it be the same thing if I'm a seller? I want to fucking pay whatever fucking commission I want. I want to put it on wherever the hell I want.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so isn't it the same thing? I mean, who is this guy
I don't know
trying
that-
to restrict it?
I don't know that it takes away the ability of the seller to pay a co-brokerage commission.
It takes away the system that is, if that system is working for me right now, right? Not a realtor, I'm a seller, right? And you're screwing around with the system. Yeah, it's affecting how much money I'm going to get for the property. That's for sure.
I would say that one of the arguments I make in my case, my classes, is that the MLS truly represents the retail residential real estate market better than any place you could look, because I mean they have done a very good job of bringing the vast majority of inventory there. So if you want to know what the retail value of a piece of real estate is, you can usually look at the MLS, even over the tax roll or other places like that, because the tax roll reflects, hey, let me sell this to my cousin and distress that, all sorts of other things that may be on in the retail market. And so when you do that, actually, I think the other unintended consequence is the valuation of real estate becomes much more difficult. Figuring out what something is worth, because now we don't have this one consistent location. We don't know how well a property on Rex is exposed to all potential buyers. So therefore, an evaluation that it shows may actually be an adverse valuation for figuring out what the retail value of a piece of property is.
I mentioned the other day, there's 3 official ways to appraise property, right? The income approach, the sales
fave.
comparison approach,
Yep.
and the cost comparison approach, right? There's 3.
Replacement cost, yeah.
But I also mentioned that the 4th is the one that nobody mentions, and it's just what people are willing to pay.
Sure.
But that 4th one specifically has to do with how many eyes are
See
on
the
a property.
Absolutely.
Right? That's again the free market. What these guys are doing or are trying to do is absolutely going to affect the number 4 one.
Well, I think that the big thing to me that's going to be very hard to implement, and I think is going to generate a lot of lawsuits and a lot of problems, is it precludes a realtor's ability, a buyer's agent, from not showing. It keeps them from not showing a property that is even offering 0 commission. They're going to be required to show all property regardless of compensation. And I don't know how you implement that. And I think that it just generates a tremendous amount of lawsuits, because if you have a buyer that's unwilling to pay you, what are you going to say? Get lost. Yeah. We can't share that property. And I mean, I would think that the overall goal is to make sure that the buyers are represented by somebody that is going to look out for their side. I mean, I've done this business a while. When I work on the seller side, I definitely do everything I can to tip everything into the benefit of my seller. When I'm on the buyer side, I do the exact same thing. Yeah. If you've never seen a home inspection report, you don't necessarily know what's in there that's a problem and what's not. I mean, I think it's going to be good for your business.
Yeah,
I think
but the thing is, you don't want to know either. Like that's the thing. Like people don't want to know. Listen, the whole thing with this is as follows: the seller that got pissed off, basically, here's what he did. He agrees to 6% or whatever the number is, but what he is pretending he didn't know is that the seller's agent was actually only going to get 3%. Because given that there's no requirement that you disclose co-brokerage, and by the way, only really agents see the MLS, okay? Like regular people don't go on to the MLS, okay? So what happens is...
But hold on. But they do. They just don't go into that part where it says the commission because IDX is something that's attached to every single website. That's the MLS.
What I'm saying
it's
is
a more
they
filtered.
don't see... This is about the commission.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So they don't see the
that
part
part, yeah.
where the seller's agent is saying, if you're another agent and you bring me a buyer, I'm going to split my commission with you.
Right.
Okay, so the thinking man's cure would be to just require listing agreements, which, by the way, are promulgated forms. You don't have to use them, but the Florida Association of Realtors puts out a form listing agreement, which is what most people use.
Bar, Florida
okay?
Association of Realtors and the bar.
Right. So all you have to do is kind of modify the form to say, to protect the seller, let's say, okay, who's already agreeing to the 6%, just add a little sentence that says, I'm willing to pay 6%, okay, but only to the extent that 3% is going to go to a cooperating broker.
That's in
If
there.
you're the only agent in the transaction, then you only pay 3%.
Well, that part's
You
not in
follow?
there. Yeah,
That's the part that's not in there, because what the seller's saying is the only reason why I'm paying 6% is because you want to give half of your commission away. So in other words, 3% is what you should be charging because 3% is fair because that's what you're going to make anyway. Okay, so just have it in there that says, listen, man, I'll pay you 6% so long as you're only getting 3%.
Yeah, but
if you're the only
let me tell you
agent
why
in the
that's
deal,
not fair,
then
though.
guess what?
Right.
You're only making 3%.
Right, but
And
that's
then
not fair because you're
the
working
agent
both
can
sides.
negotiate.
Because then you're working both sides of the deal.
But it
It's
doesn't matter.
double the responsibility.
We both know
that's like
not
you
true.
representing a client, right? And then all of a sudden you're representing the client that he's doing a deal with.
In all the hundreds of deals that you've done, how many
Hundreds,
times?
motherfucker, are you crazy?
Hundreds of thousands.
Are you fucking hundreds?
In all the
up with this guy?
thousands of deals
Hundreds.
that you've done,
Tens
in all
of
the
thousands.
tens of
There,
deals
there,
that you've done,
Tens of thousands, yes.
how many times have you had an agent complain that the other agent isn't doing shit, is going to get 3%?
Oh, a lot of times.
Okay, so bro, so again, we don't really have a metric for, you're doing all the work or you're earning all the work. The other side doesn't do shit. Like there isn't like a test for, oh, you did your job, so here's your 3%. You don't have to do shit. You get the 3%.
This is true, but somebody has to do it to get it done, right?
It has to happen.
But what is there to
Right.
do?
What is there to do? Look,
What is there to do?
all right. So
Yeah, what is there to do? When you have
So,
the buyer,
but-
unless
but-
you're in a fucking condo, what are you doing?
I'm loving this. Let me just
go ahead.
let me just
You're better qualified to answer this.
when you hand out real estate licenses, and this should be mandated from FREC, it should just come with a pooper scooper, because all we do all the time is have to go behind everybody and make sure they're doing what they're not supposed to. Because if you think agents are the only ones that suck, mortgage brokers, I hate to say it, title companies,
Yeah.
the home everybody. My job, they tell me that my job has something to do with real estate. My job is a follow-up job that occasionally has me looking at real estate.
That's like saying that the composer, the guy with the little fucking stick that's in the orchestra, all he does is hold the little stick and go like that. No, dude, he's conducting.
I don't think that's a good comparison.
It's an absolutely phenomenal comparison.
I would say to you that there's this, right? My job, and I stole this from him, but it's actually a very good line.
Must be
My
great.
job is to take and make sure that they have no surprises.
Yes.
And what that means is
Yes.
you're managing the emotional state of these people that are spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars that may have never been exposed to this before. My job is to make sure that everything that can go wrong, which you're in the title company, you know there's a million ways for a deal to go sideways, right? My job is to make sure that we've, in advance, know what those are. I've taken all the steps possible to mitigate those potential exposures and to take and shepherd them through, because
You're walking them through a process that they have no idea what to expect.
even like you and I both know, 3 days before closing, what happens? The deal goes to this magical, horrible place called underwriting. And all of a sudden, that buyer is they haven't heard from their mortgage broker in a month. Everything seems fine. And now they're calling them up, asking them for every document since Gutenberg invented the printing press. They assure them that they can't get a DNA sample from their dead grandmother's pet chihuahua, this deal's not going to close. They're freaking out. They think the world's going to end. Now, for me, I'm out in front of all that stuff. I've told them, hey, this is normal. Not only is this normal, this is good. Them breaking your chops for more documents means that we're getting close.
Wait a second, because I'm a little insulted around. What the fuck do you think a realtor actually does, though? Let's talk about it. So what should a realtor do, and what? Because then I'm going to tell you what an attorney should do. So go ahead, bro. Tell me what you think a realtor does.
This is when I don't want to be in the middle.
Oh, wait a second here.
First of
Let's
all,
get to the
let's
nitty
make
gritty
sure
here,
that
bro.
we set the premises of what we're talking about. This came up because Jesus was like, it's not fair to have on the document, which, by the way, same free market, you can say no. As the listing agent, you should be like, no, man, fuck you. I'm going to get 6% come hell or high water. Whether there's another agent or not, I'm going to get my 6%, which, by the way, is not the way it works. Okay, so your point is when there's another agent, I'm okay with only 3% because the other guy's got all this work to do. Even though we agreed that there's no rule. Even though
That
we
they have to
agreed
do the
that the
work.
other agent could be a piece of shit and you're still only going to get 3%. So
Absolutely.
either you decide.
Well, a good listing realtor
hold on.
makes the guy do the stuff.
So no, that's not true. Bro. The true
Absolutely.
listing realtor just emails them and gets pissed off. Trust
Nah.
me, we see it all the time. In
Well,
fact, if that were the case, you'd never get to closing and hear that the other guy shouldn't get paid. Right? Because I would have made him do what he was supposed to do. It's false.
I have a
It's
laundry
false.
list of ways to make him do their stuff.
So what happens is, okay, when you represent the buyer, and let's talk about just Miami-Dade County. Okay, when you
Well,
are the
that's not
buyers,
fair. All right,
because that's
going
a
to
place.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, because
No,
that's
you're
a
a dick.
place where, that's a place where, like for example, the custom here in Dade and Broward and just in a few counties, it's that the buyer insurance pays title, right, and all that good stuff.
Buyer picks and
Okay,
pays,
and the buyer's agent has to prepare the offer. Okay, which in my view is a lot easier than being the listing agent and receiving the offer. Okay, in the law, it's the same. You got two lawyers working a deal together. It's a transaction. There's always this question at the beginning. Do you want to take a shot at preparing the document and sending it over to me for review? You want me to do it? And the right answer is always, oh, fuck, you do it. Okay, but the custom is the buyers prepare the offers. Okay, so the buyer's agent has to prepare the offer. That's doing a little more than the selling agent at this point. Okay, so
No, man, no. No, the listing agent has
prepare
to.
the offer?
You said to this point, so that means the listing agent had to get the pictures of the property, market the property.
No, I'm talking about that.
Okay,
We're talking about,
to this point. Okay, all right.
But remember, all that gets done before the buyer even shows up with an agent.
Right,
We're
Right,
talking
but there's work done. No, if we're
buddy,
doing an Excel sheet with
no,
hours,
no.
there's
We're
an
talking
Excel sheet.
about-
Buyer, hold on. This is the way I'm seeing this. There's an Excel sheet with hours, right? The listing agent and the buyer's agent. You get frustrated because you're losing the argument.
No,
all right.
I'm getting
So,
frustrated
okay.
because this is why I had to set the premises. We're talking about the work that the other agent arguably takes off your hands, which is why you're okay with the 3%.
Okay, so you said to this point, so that's the part that threw
right,
me off.
because
All right,
we're
go
talking
ahead.
about work that's subject to being unloaded.
Okay, go ahead.
You never get the work of the pictures and baking the cookies and the showings unloaded.
Not the baking the
because
cookies, the
that's all
marketing- the
before-
marketing of the
Yeah,
property.
that's part of the fucking marketing.
Yeah.
Okay, you want it to walk in and smell like home.
Marketing,
right?
Well,
You stage
marketing,
it, all that shit.
By the way, how many offers did you get that you didn't accept? How many counter offers were off the
Exactly.
table?
All
How many
work-
deals? How many times have you
None
gotten
of that
deals?
work
Hold on.
is
How many times have a listing
offloaded.
agent? How many times has a listing agent gotten 3 offers?
Can you help on this?
And none of them closed.
Is that work the kind of work we're talking about?
I get what you're saying, and I think this is the piece, Rich, that is the one that
So you gotta
I
have-
get
gotta like it.
in my soul.
It's a normal guy.
The part that's offloaded is showing the properties. So
Right.
right now, I'm going to jump on a plane. I'm flying to Rome tomorrow.
Right.
Right. I'm going to be in Rome, and my listings are going to be getting sold.
Right.
And so that is the piece, and that is the very time-consuming piece. It's the reason why buyers agents have such a high attrition rate in this industry, is because it is very time-consuming
To take people to see 8 properties.
To
It's fucking
physically,
horrible.
yeah, no, it's 8 properties. It's a day.
Eight's a good
gone.
number, yeah.
And so
Might be 3 days depending on the buyer,
And so-
especially if he brings his mother-in-law.
that's the tough thing. Yeah, no, I agree. And so to me, there's this balancing point of that. And actually, there's two things. One, I wanted to toss out there before I forget. One of the big things that's in the lawsuit is they're going to require the disclosure of the commission to the public. That's one of the things. So like on the
Oh, so now it's on IDX.
it's going to be everywhere.
This is part of what they're looking for, the transparency. Again, the lawsuit, it's not about one thing, okay? It's not like, hey, we want to dismantle co-brokerage. That's how the industry phrases it when they're writing about it to make it sound worse than it is. What these people are looking for, certain things. We want more transparency. We want this, we want this, we want this, we want that. The other side, if you're against it, you're like, this amounts to the dismantling of the co-brokerage
Socialism.
system. Right. And right. And so again, look, like I said, the longer the case goes on, the more likelihood that it will result, okay, in changes that both sides will agree to have.
Sure.
Okay, because if you let the judge and the jury decide, you may get all, you may get nothing, or you may get a combination of things that nobody likes. So, it's a powerful thing to control your own destiny, and that's why, these cases, like I said, the longer they last, the more incentive there is to resolve the case.
Okay, so continue on. What does a realtor actually do?
I got one more thing, please. I'm sorry, and then we'll go back to this.
Sure.
Because that's a question actually for you, Rich, and I'm curious for the legal opinion. I know what I think, but who the hell am I? It's always my preference, if I can, for us to do the agreement on our side.
Us meaning who?
Whichever side I'm on, right? Because then I set all the terms.
So if you're on
When
the
say-
seller
when
side, you
say
do
to
the real.
to do the agreement. You mean the offer, the contract?
yeah.
If you're
I
on the
mean-
seller side, you make the offer for the buyer's realtor.
If I could, I
Really?
would prefer. If I had
You're
the
the
choice,
only person I've ever seen ever do that.
if I could, if they say, "Hey, I'm on vacation, could you?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm going to put how many days for inspections. I'm going to put all those terms in there, and they're going to be.
That's very, 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 very.
It's very rare, but what I'm saying is,
Extremely
I'm
rare.
asking from because
Never
what
even
you
heard
said,
about it.
Rich, kind of left me in, and I know you're obviously in a position where you're doing agreements back and forth. Is it your preference always to do the agreement for your side, or are you like, "Hey, look, you go ahead and do it"?
It depends. I mean, look, I usually, with form documents like the FAR as is, okay,
Only
like
so ways it can go
right,
sideways.
like, go ahead and prepare it and send it to me, okay? And the same is almost true with document intense transactions where it's like, and it's the best when you deal with lawyers and they're like selling high-end property here, especially commercial, and they don't want to use like the commercial contract that the group of lawyers put out there. They want to send you their own, and it's like 40 pages long. It's like, dude, it says the same shit, just with more heretofores and notwithstandings.
Yep.
Okay, and so it's like okay, bro, you want to use your big fancy forms, you justify your fee, no problem. Okay, so but as a general premise, I prefer to poke holes in documents than to be the one.
It sounds way more fun
to put
than getting
the
holes poked.
initial work.
Because no matter how good your contract
I
is, they're
know
going to
you,
poke.
and I feel like that jives with what I know about you.
I prefer to do that, or to kind of look and see where the other side's coming from. It gives, I often tell people, let's take the temperature. So when we see the nature of the document they send over, you kind of see where their head is. Like, what's the notice requirement?
Well,
like?
the first rule of negotiation is let them put the offer first. I mean, you always want to be the guy receiving the offer.
Sure,
You know?
I get
So
that.
that's just
if
negotiation.
they've given me the terms, the general terms, what I always look to do is, okay, those are the terms you want. I'll go in there and put the rest of the terms as in my.
Right.
You're getting 5 days for inspection.
Right, there's that side too, which is good, right? Like if we agree on basic terms, they rarely we call them the operative terms. No term sheet, ever really goes into like the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So that might be your opportunity. Okay. Now again, listen, the wealthiest people I represent, the most successful people I've been around, like they're very short on the nitty gritty. These are visionary guys. They're like,
big
oh,
picture.
and we shake hands and we walk away, and then it's like, let the lawyers figure it out. And that's when things start to get a little complicated because it's our job to make sure nobody steps in shit to the extent possible.
Protect them as best you can while at the same time getting the deal done if possible.
Right. So but
And that's how you guys got the name deal killers.
breakers. Yeah,
deal killers, deal breakers.
Yeah, deal killers.
Which a lot of times, let me tell you, man, a lot of times is the case because, listen, I get it. You're charging $500 an hour, and then you get a FAR bar contract in front of you, which, by the way, was prepared by the Florida Association of Realtors and the bar, so you guys had a hand in caking and baking the cake.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden you taste it. It tastes like shit. That's basically what it comes down.
Yeah.
But I get it because if you're getting paid $500 an hour, you can't look at it and be like, all right, it's perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
Right. You got to.
No,
you
I
gotta
mean,
change
listen,
some stuff.
I do, and like I said, I mean, it gets to the point where I think it's like there's the only lawyers that can't do that are the ones that really have to justify these insane rates where like you go into their office and the coffee stirrer has the firm name.
Yeah.
So
when that
if
that
the
happens,
coffee stirrer is branded,
get
bro,
out of there. Right.
You know what I mean?
Run for the hills.
The foam in the coffee has the logo.
Exactly. Right. If they bring you the foam and like it's branded with the firm's logo, all the conference room have telephony. Okay, so it's like now you get to be a 20-year practitioner and you kind of you've earned a stripe or two. Listen, again, I hate reinventing the wheel. As a
So
general
you've
premise,
actually looked at a contract and say it's good, it's fine, and not change the one thing. There's no fucking way.
No, I mean,
The FAR bar.
when you say not change one thing, I mean, like ordinarily I'll get an offer. Let's say I'm representing a buyer, okay? And the buyer's agent prepares the offer, okay? And let's say that it's the real ideal setting where you're asked to review the offer in advance. Okay, I get many documents, contracts that I have to say, yeah, it's fine. You want to know why? Because it's fully executed. What am I going to do? Point out all the fuck ups now? Like, bro, that guy's a buzzkill. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, I get him. I'm like, this is fully executed. I usually go right to the back just to see how much time I have to spend on it. If it's fucking signed by anybody, my work is done here, bro. You know,
I'm tell everything you did wrong after you did it.
Right.
I pick up the pieces at this point.
So if you send me the offer in advance, then I'm gonna work for the buyer. Let's say we're gonna do the closing or something like that. I will usually add a provision that nowadays is missing way less often than it used to be. Okay, which is what I call the permit language.
Yep.
Okay, so nowadays most offers will come to me and I'll see it and it says seller will at its sole cost and expense close any and all open permits prior to the closing. Okay, and these agents, man, they slap that on and they're ready to break their arms, patting themselves on the back because they think they're like, we got it. And they put it at seller's expense. Oh no, hey, seller's gonna pay. Wow. Fuck you guys, bro, you thought it all through. And I will usually change that to a slightly better version of the same thing.
At any time prior to closing.
Right,
I remember,
that'll say, it'll give you at any time prior to closing. So now we're not really bound by the diligence timeline. Okay, which again, if you're not thinking.
But that's tricky though, because once you pass the diligence and then.
No, it says at any time. It's not tricky. It's not tricky. Okay, I've rammed it up many asses with that.
I know, man, but you're supposed to close on day 30 and then day 29. It should be restricted to a little bit.
But it's not.
I get it. But
so
at the beginning,
that's the law of drafting on the other side.
Yeah.
So you get that. Now you're the seller's lawyer, and you flip to the back and you see it, and the guy writes at any time prior to closing, and you don't like that. You're going to say at any time prior to closing, but in no event within 10 days of closing.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
There you
and
go.
then that's what you got to do. So this is advocacy.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the law of advocacy, and this is how you're supposed to do it. And so but to answer your question, I will routinely. If the permit provision is not in there, I'll put it in there. If it's low on what I call specifics, okay, because like most people, they don't think about what's next. So in legal writing, you have to contemplate the consequence. So in that common example, seller shall, at seller's sole cost and expense, close any and all open permits prior to closing. Okay, what if they don't do it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What happens?
Now, I know you're thinking, well, that means the buyer doesn't have to close. And it's like, but where does it say that? Oh, no, it doesn't say that. That's what I meant. And I'm like, okay, but you were writing it. Like, why didn't you just
Why did you say what you meant?
Why didn't you just fucking add the consequence? And by the way, this is like a common principle of contracts and in drafting. And by the way, in contract law, we have this rule, okay, which a lot of and you'll love it because it's common sense. Okay, a lot of the law.
By the way, it's because he's saying that because I have phenomenal, common
exceptional,
sense. Nobody's never
above
seen anybody
average
with more
common sense.
Way above average.
Above average. It's unbelievable.
I could just figure shit out.
There's a rule in contract law that's called that ambiguity is construed against the drafter.
Sure.
Okay, so if you are the author of the document, you are charged with a heightened level of scrutiny about what you put in
Another reason why not to do it.
or left out.
Why not?
Right? So,
let the other guy do it.
well, I'll tell you what the cure was. Lawyers came up with a fix for that too. Okay, so if you have the typewriter, you have the pen, then listen, if it's important to you, you should have put it in there. Okay, and if you wrote it,
Not make me have to imagine.
right, and if you wrote it and you didn't put it in there, then the inference that we can draw is that it wasn't that important to you.
Right.
Okay, so now, so enough lawyers got their asses burned with that kind of rule that now most of these non-form contracts, this is why you want, so if you're the big firm lawyer and now they're listening, they're like, you see, Rich, you asshole, there is a reason for my 55-page fucking document. It's because you'll put in there a disclosure that says, hey, it doesn't matter who wrote this. Each party had a lawyer, each side had an opportunity, and there will be no construing against the drafter. Okay, so they'll add a provision that kind of to nullify that general rule of contract. Okay, but so when I get the permit language, I'll add like consequence language, which is and if the seller, so let's say at any time prior to closing, if open, expired, or needed permits are discovered, okay, the seller shall do whatever they have to do to resolve the permit issues, let's say prior to closing, okay? And if the seller fails or refuses to comply with the obligations imposed under this section, then buyer can, 1, terminate the contract and request an immediate refund of the deposit, which shall be given. 2, take the property subject to, okay, and decide to close, right? So you provide this consequence, right, and then all of a sudden we know where we're going. Like we're not, because you get the agent, I get the call, they're like, oh, I put it in there, the permit language, and they're refusing. And I'm like, okay, what did you write after that? They're like, no, I didn't know. What do you mean? What do you mean? What did I write after that? I wrote that. It was in there. I said seller had to pay, and so you have to contemplate the consequence. So have I ever gotten an offer that I don't have to change? The answer is actually yes. When, let's say, I get it from one of your well-trained agents that actually listens. They cut and fucking paste the language that I've emailed 2,000 times. They don't want to think. They're like, bro, I don't have to think. When I see this section 20, the blank lines, like Pavlov's dog, it's a bell. Bing! Where's my cut and paste?
That's right.
When I represent the buyer. Don't fucking think, bro. Don't be an author. Don't do anything else.
Not the creative writing
So when
section.
it's done right, you don't get it. Some agents, they know. They ask for the seller's disclosure. If it's a condo, they put the goddamn condo writer in there. I mean, the document comes with bells and whistles. Mm-hmm. Not like there's almost a form addendum for everything. So it's like post-occupancy is another good one. We just had this. Like, listen, if your seller wants to stay in the property after the closing,
That's a tricky one.
we have an addendum for that.
I know, but
absolutely,
Bro, but the addendum doesn't make you exhaust
You need a
the
lease.
terms. It says, hey, we're going to either get into an agreement or a lease, and we're going to do it at least 5
Right,
days
and the
before
reason why
closing.
you need a lease is because it needs to specify what happens if you don't pay,
Right.
and if you don't leave,
or because
if you don't,
because most people also don't know the difference.
So no addendum has enough language in it to cover
ejectment
everything
stuff.
that could possibly happen.
Right, of course. No, and by the way, that's the other, the fun of contract is that there, whenever the ship blows up, then it's like, well, it would have been much better had it said X, and it's like, no shit, asshole. If I had a crystal ball, I'd be the best fucking lawyer in the world, right? So you can't plan for everything, but the universe of things that you should think about in advance is a lot smaller than people want to give it credit for.
Yeah.
They're like, how could I have imagined that? And it's like, how could you have imagined what happened if the guy didn't do what you wanted to do? Well, that's because that's fucking, it's 50%.
Rich,
they're either going to comply or not,
I got to tell you, the way you explained it the one time we were doing a class together was my favorite, which is that an addendum can never leave you in suspense. I thought that was a brilliant way. Like,
look how happy he is. I
was like, hey, wait, say that part again. Wait,
look how happy that guy is.
Listen, when you guys edit this, I'd like you to loop that. Just
3 times.
quickly go back to it. My favorite part
you explained
was
it.
when you said. Right, just make sure you get the emphasis on that, okay?
No, man. I mean, even because I still use it. I give you credit for it, and I still use it. And I say, look,
if it's a page turner, if your contract's a page turner, you fucked up.
Something's wrong.
Okay?
Tune in next week to find out what happens when they don't do it.
What happens next?
Exactly.
That's bad. That's bad. In legal writing, that's bad.
That's a technical, illegal term. Bad.
Hey,
Bad.
so let's go back to what you think realtors do, like for real.
Not a lot, bro.
No, I know. Listen, because I know there's this undertone.
Let me tell you what they do.
I know there's this
go to
undertone
class
between
for the
attorneys.
weekend.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
There's some bitterness there.
100%.
I went to college for how long?
100%. That's exactly what happens. Wait a second. This guy made 30 grand on this transaction.
On the next installment of the show, Jesus will tell us why law school is a waste of money.
Go ahead. So what do you think a realtor does? So a realtor, they show the property. All right, so let's start.
No,
they meet the client. They meet
showing
the
the
client.
property.
No,
is
they meet
a
the
lot.
client. No,
they
they meet the
prepare-
client.
They show properties.
No, you're off there already. First of all, they got to meet with the client. They got to get him to a mortgage lender so he can get approved for a loan.
Yeah, depending on the buyer. Yeah, most buyers.
90%.
78%.
78%. Are you serious?
Yeah, 78% of homes bought.
Yeah,
I
he's
said,
like,
got enough
you hear that?
Cadillac.
He's like, Cadillac, shut up. It's bad for my argument. I need.
I'll take 78.
Cadillac.
I'll take 78.
Cadillac, can you find me another 25 points? I need another. I need to say it's 93%.
Honestly,
I'll take 78 all day.
I wouldn't doubt in this market that it probably is more. But
Okay,
that's national.
I'll just cover the holes when you miss them. All right. So we meet with the client, assess what they're looking for, take them to a lender, get approved for a lender, and then what?
Show properties.
Show
till they're
properties.
blue in the face.
Well, how many in average are showed?
That one I don't know. I would.
And by the way, what's the agent? Like, are we dealing with our agents where they
Whatever.
don't understand the use of a computer?
An agent.
Because nowadays you can put them on this little sign up where you tell them, hey, I want to live within this many miles. I got this price. And every day the buyer will wake up and they'll get hit in the head with 50 emails.
That's fine.
Via property.
That's fine.
And then you just got to tell the agent which one you want to see.
Okay, so
Right?
and they show. So
Yeah,
they do the search.
We've had that for a long time. It just doesn't work out that way. I mean, sadly.
It doesn't?
It doesn't.
I was on that list.
No,
That
and I
was
mean, but
pretty helpful.
let's be honest. You don't consider yourself the average buyer either.
No,
right?
because I can read.
this is true. I mean,
Fine. Okay, so fine. So then they show the properties. So let's say in an average of what? I don't know, 10 to 15.
I would say 12 was the number that I kind of remember from someplace.
12
was the average.
All right, so they show 12.
You got to show
All right.
a shit ton of property.
Then all of a sudden, what happens? Then they
But
like
remember,
the property.
but hold on a second, because again, here's the thing: we got to keep you focused. Because help me out. We're talking about work that you're offloading when you represent the seller.
Sure.
Okay. Now, you presumably, unless you have all 15 of these listings, unless the seller's agent has all 15 of the listings that the buyer's agent,
I just want you to know the whole role, but go ahead. I'll give you
No,
that.
my point is that
One property. They showed that one property. No, I know where
it's
you're going
one
with that technicality.
property.
I get it.
No,
Go.
it's not
Dude,
a
I've known you long enough.
technicality.
Just go,
It's
go,
very
go.
simple. We're
Keep on
talking
going.
about when you're the seller,
Fine.
when you have the listing.
Yeah.
We're talking about
He's gonna grab onto
what
that
does
one
the
little-
buyer's agent take
Look how
off
happy
of
he is
your
that
plate?
you-
What does the
you figured out
buyer's
that little one. All right.
Listen, focus.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Focus.
Go ahead.
Focus.
Go.
So they took one showing off your plate.
Fine. Okay. And then
Okay.
go ahead.
They prepared the offer. Okay. If it's a condo, they presumably, and they should, be on top of the application process.
Absolutely.
For the buyer.
Okay.
Right. We train, in fact, in our classes, we train agents that when you're taking a buyer to see a condo, you should be ready. You should have the docs for that condo.
By the way, is that an easy
application.
process? Getting them approved for the association?
Oh, it's a
and-
pain in the ass.
huge pain and time
Pain in
consuming.
the ass. They
Right.
suck.
Nobody answers the
Woof.
phone.
Horrible.
Huge nightmare.
Horrible.
Okay.
And theoretically, I'm willing to concede that if you are listing the condo and the buyer shows up with no agent, you're going to have to take that on.
Right, which
because
is a
because
big
most
task.
buyers,
Right.
It doesn't occur to them, oh shit, I have to apply, and what does that mean? And
So what else?
what else? They should follow up with the lender, right?
Follow up with the lender, so that
to make sure that the
okay.
lender is on top of it, and that
How about
and
inspections?
more importantly,
How about inspections?
that the buyers, it depends.
And does that inspector just magically show up at the property, or you got to find them one and usually recommend a couple of them so they can kind of help them pick the right inspector, schedule it, be there, analyze it with them, the inspection report, the whole thing, right?
No, they shouldn't do that, and I'll tell you that as a sitting commissioner, they should not do that. They should not do that. In fact, we frown on that, and it's very difficult to get inspection-related courses approved for continuing education for agents in Florida. We really want agents to stay in their lane here.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not a good idea to have your agent, or to have an agent. Yeah, if you're the broker, to have your agent giving your buyer their assessment on the inspection.
No, I didn't say assessment.
Yeah. Help them analyze it and all
Well,
that shit, and
well,
look at it and tell them what's a concern.
In Miami,
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
In Miami, you're translating them a
know?
lot. You know what I mean?
Dude, in Miami, the agents don't speak. I mean, think about it. How many? Be realistic. How many of your agents don't speak English, percentage-wise?
Out of the 500, I would say, at least don't speak any at all.
Like, don't read it. Like, they can't have not functioning English.
No,
I mean,
they do because they got to read the contract and everything. But that's not their second language. That is their first. Yeah, I would say a large majority. I don't even know how many, but it was a large
I would
majority.
think also your office tends to disrepresent that sub demographic.
Yeah, it's a Hispanic
it's-
company, Spanish speaking.
in Doral. I mean, it's
7 of 10, 8 of 10.
Yeah, 7.
Okay. And how many inspection reports have you ever seen in Spanish?
None.
Okay, so if you're a consumer, you think it's a good idea to have someone who doesn't speak
Honestly, I don't think I'd want to see one in Spanish.
reading? No,
that would
no.
be kind of concerning too.
And if and think about it now. So, do you're buying the house? Do you want the guy or gal that doesn't speak or read English to help you analyze your inspection report?
well, I think
Because I don't think it's a good idea. Now I know it happens because again, these people don't think either.
sure.
Okay, but it's like anything else. It's like, and by the way, I do this in our classes a lot, not just you. I'll walk into class when I'm teaching a class to agents and I'll hold up the as is and I'll say, okay, guys, be honest now. Who's read this document end to end, beginning to end? And in the room, right. And I'll tell you, you'll get one sheepish guy like that because they do like
Was I not
these guys
supposed to?
like these guys at the debate. It's like, hey, who will support no matter what? And you see, one guy was like this, and then the crowd started going, and then they were looking
I better
around.
get on
And
the
they were like,
strain.
okay, so when you ask that question, you get this. So I tell agents all the time, I go, okay, if you're in the group of people that didn't raise your hand, how can you help like the consumer? Like, like, and in fact, and if the consumer asks you right out the bat, you present an offer. Have you read this?
All credibility up.
What are you going to say? Yep. You're either going to lie and say, oh yeah, which is bad. Or you're going to tell the truth. You're going to say, no, I haven't. I mean, you mean this one? No, I've never, like the document itself. It's the same one we use every day, but I've never read it.
I've never taken the time to turn all 13
right. So
pages.
what kind of confidence can you inspire in the thing? So this just goes back to what the agent should be doing. And in my view, they really should stick to sales. Okay, whatever the aspects of sales mean. So babysitting the mortgage broker, I agree. Okay, because you're not interpreting things there. Okay, you're not giving your legal opinion. The mortgage broker's asking for your last 58 W-2s.
So the
inspection,
inspection report came with issues, as it does. What percentage of the time?
That would be 103% of the time.
Yeah, 104%.
Okay, so 104%.
Time.
There's something wrong. So who has to either extend the inspection period or help with the negotiation? Who's going to pay the washer and the dryer?
Agents, Both agents are doing that.
Both agents for
when
both sides.
Two, yeah.
So right. So what happens if there's only one side? Do you got to do both sides of the negotiation?
It depends. Are you a transaction broker?
Well,
or it just
we're
depends
talking about
on how you sign up.
We're talking about what work is being unloaded. Okay, right.
Yeah.
So if that's the case,
so you're going to communicate.
If you're
no
doing
matter
both
what,
sides,
you're communicating with the other side.
Right.
And by the way, if you are a buyer's agent and your buyer's requesting an extension, typically that extension addendum is going to be drafted by the buyer's agent first in transactions where you don't have a listing agent that's a control person. I see many, particularly in higher end transactions, if you're the listing agent, it's like, you're almost like it's like the meme. Remember like the vampires when they're on the balcony? It's like, everyone who locked in a 2% looking at everybody else and they're like looking down at you. So if you are a high value, seller's agent, listing agent in this town, you may want to control everything and draft everything. Okay. But you have to do that work, right? Of documenting any changes to the transaction.
So, and this is one thing that I think you and I agree. As long as everything goes right, everything goes right. Right.
Yeah.
And
when it goes wrong,
right.
It's a disaster.
And that's what really, and the same thing with attorneys, right? So yeah, you get paid there was one attorney that explained it to me in a perfect way. It's what do you charge the $500 an hour, right? Well, it's not for the hour. It's for the 15 years of school,
of my knowledge,
of cases that have gotten my ass kicked and this and that to get to the point where I'm able to charge that amount.
Oh, you'll love this one.
You're paying for the pain and suffering.
There's a guy. He's a very wealthy guy. He's got a big yacht. Yacht's got two humongous motors, engines, okay? And a yacht so big, it's got an engine room, okay? It's not just under the fucking compartment, okay? And so you go down, the guy goes down in the engine room and he just bought the yacht, he takes it out. When he comes back, he's pissed off because one of the engines has a noise. He can hear it, but it just doesn't sound right. When you pay...
Do I know this guy?
No, and when you pay $10 million for a boat, for a boat of this size, the fucking engine's got to sound right, okay? And so he hears it, this and that. And he calls a few mechanics. Nobody can fix it. The Rolls Royce. Usually these engines are Rolls Royce. They send the Rolls Royce rep. This that nobody.
Oh,
can
this
fix
is a
it.
real guy.
Finally, well, it's one of those stats that if it's not true, it should be. And so finally, the guy's talking to his buddy, and he says, "No, there's a guy. There's this old, maritime marine mechanic guy, and the guy's the best. He's the guy you got to call." And he's sure, call this fucking old man. Shows up. to the marina. He's got one of those old school, like an actual toolbox. You know, nowadays they're all tool bags. They call them tool boxes. This guy has a box. Okay, a little fucking wooden handle. And he shows up and he gets to the boat and he says, all right, let me see it. And they go down in the engine room, bro. And the guy, you know, he turns
Why does the guy
on
have a hillbilly accent?
because he's
okay.
he's from the deep south. And he
may or may
turns
not
it
be a mullet
on. He
involved.
turns it on, and the old man goes like this, and he listens, and he puts his hand on the side of like the casing, you know, and he feels like this thing, and he says, "Okay, you want me to fix it?" And the guy says, "Yeah, of course, please do." And the old man goes into his tool bag. He pulls out a tiny little hammer, okay, with like a little mallet tip, and he just turns and he goes like this to the side of the engine. He goes, "Dunk, dunk," and the humming stops. Okay, and the owner of the boat is so fucking happy. He's like, "Oh my God, you're the best. So and so told me you were the best. I don't know why I fucking wasted my time. I'm gonna call you for everything now. Blah, blah, blah. My fucking hose doesn't work. I'm gonna call you." Gives him a big hug. He's like, "I'll send you a bill." Next day, he gets the bill from the old man, $10,000, and the guy goes fucking
Nuts.
ape shit. $10,000. He calls the old man. He goes, "Hey, I got your bill. Listen. I'm still happy that you fixed my boat. So instead of telling you to go fuck yourself, I want a breakdown. I want you to itemize the bill for me of how you got to the $10,000 that you're charging me." And the old man says, "Yeah, no problem." And the old man sends him back an itemized bill that says, number 1, knocking on side of engine with hammer, $5. Number 2, knowing where to knock, $9,995.
Genius.
And that's the theme of the example of what you're saying with the lawyer, you know?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at. All right. Well, sorry. Let's continue with the. Okay. So if things go wrong, right? That's where a realtor has to pick up the pieces, right? Potentially have to sell the property again, move to another one.
No,
addendums over addendums.
That's not offloadable work.
Having to sell the property
that's not
again.
Offloadable work.
Okay. All
You're
right.
selling the property before. The property's sold once you're in contract. That's it.
So
We're talking about the
financing?
seller that got pissed off.
So now you got to talk to
because
the mortgage
he found
broker.
out that after he agreed to 6%, that he paid 3% of that to the buyer's agent, and he didn't know that in advance. And his position is, had I known that in advance, had I known you were happy with 3% to sell my house, I would have never agreed to pay you more than 3%. And all I said is that instead of fucking suing people and dismantling the whole co-brokerage system because you got one asshole seller that wants to be babysat, he wants it on the form that if there's a cooperating agent, you're going to pay money and all that. You just add a fucking sentence that says, "Hey, if you work this deal by yourself, I'm going to pay you 3%. And if you work it with somebody else, you know, if you work it by yourself, I'm going to pay you the 3%. And if you work it with somebody else, I'll pay 6% because I know."
But if you're on the seller
and you're
side,
saying free market,
if
the
you're
selling agent should be able to say, "No, man, if I work it by myself, that's when I really want the 6% because I got to do all this extra work."
Here's the big word is I have the responsibility. I am now responsible for the other side performing.
And I think that's the beauty of the negotiation that
Right.
this lawsuit is seeking to eliminate, to undermine.
Right.
I honestly.
So all of a sudden, if you're on the listing side now, and that guy shows up with no realtor, dude, you got double the responsibility. You got now 2 horses in the race, right?
And I'm
Both
just
of those
saying
horses have to finish the race, right?
It's better to just leave it to the parties to be able to negotiate
100%.
what it is. But in this fucking day and age where people just, they don't read, bro. They don't read and they don't want to read. They
wanna be
don't want to
told.
read. They literally teach you in effective communication classes, like via email, like these leadership classes for CEOs and big department managers. They teach you how to phrase the emails and the memos and shit that you put out to your staff so that it's like, get it all out in the first sentence.
Yep.
Like if you make people go to the 3rd paragraph break, you lost them, bro. They don't understand anymore. They got to go back and reread. I mean, it's fucking insane what's going on. People they just don't read.
They don't, and they're taught not to have an opinion. They're taught to take and regurgitate someone else's. To me, the issue always has been that as a transaction broker, as soon as I represent both sides, I have to take off my team jersey and put on a referee's jersey. And that actually,
That's a good way to put it right there.
that harms my business significantly, because my business model has always been traded on that I look after my people, I take care of my people on my watch. I'm not going to let them make a mistake.
You should. It is. It's just the other side's now your people too.
I know it is, but then you know how you can't fight for both sides. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That inspection report comes in. I can't try to get my people the extra 1,500 from the other side. You know, I can't. I try to earn my keep. That's always been my idea of how I run my business, which is to show them I go get the extra little bit of money that the other agents. Oh, we have an agreement. Let's walk away. I bring them extra. They tell me they'll take 265. I go get them 266.5. Right, that extra 1,500 is the thing that gets me their loyalty going forward. That's why I'm the only person they call. And so when I'm actually doing both sides, it precludes my ability to give the kind of service that I like. Which,
and let me tell you this.
tough.
Listen, I get that there's realtors out there that probably have no business being in the business, but that's not much.
yeah.
That's not very different from a divorce attorney handling a real estate transaction, or one of those slip and fall guys handling a. So you're a hardcore real estate guy. You're in real estate every single day. That's what you do. I mean, you do some other stuff, but real estate's probably 90% of your world.
Yeah.
Kind of like I said, what is
Real
it?
estate and contracts.
How much percentage of his world is real estate?
78%. 78.654%.
Right. So, but then you get these guys that, and that's when, and I know you've heard me say that, and when we argue,
The deal killers.
and listen, I've been in the business full time for 20 something years now, right? 23, 24 years or something now. And then you deal with an attorney that's an attorney, and they shit all over your contract.
Yeah.
And this is his first or second transaction, but he's an attorney. You're supposed to he's an attorney.
Yeah.
And that's
Well.
and those are the things. So there's no such thing. It's not a perfect business.
No.
Right. And just like there's realtors that shouldn't be in the business, there's also attorneys that, I mean, shouldn't real estate attorneys have to go through some sort of real estate certification? Should they know the basics of it? Because they just don't. I mean, some of these times,
it's a great question, and I think it applies more or more broadly to the law in general. So in law school, we don't have I don't know how it works in medical school, but
practice.
Right, we call it the practice of medicine and the practice of law, but at least I think for doctors in residency and things like that, they kind of focus on something. I think a little more. They kind of do these fellowships to focus on things, and it makes their time in school incredibly long and painful for them. But we don't have that so much. So like in law school, I focused primarily on advocacy type classes. So like when you had the opportunity to take electives, I would take a lot of trial advocacy based electives. In my mind, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in trial every day. I wanted to be in court. Now that's the opposite of where I want to be. I'm a transactional lawyer almost exclusively.
Is there one person that motivated you to get into real estate?
No.
You're such a bullshit. It was me, 100%. Dragged this guy by the little bit of hair he still had left and forced him to get into real estate. That's what he won't tell you.
No, that much is true. Admittedly, yeah.
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah,
honestly, it's a bit like pulling that out of you. Might have been a little bit of kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I didn't like it at the time. I didn't like it.
Totally against it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. So, but what's funny is going back to the lawyers, that kind of have no business doing the transactions is because I started my career as a litigator, and I litigated for a long time, more than 10 years. I can detect right away when I'm involved on a transaction with a lawyer who's never been a litigator primarily. It's very hard to find a lawyer who's never been in litigation. He's only ever done transactions. That maybe at the real big firms, that's more likely. As a general premise, most lawyers they've been in a litigation from time to time. They've been in court a few times and this and that. So, but you can tell when someone has never been a litigator because they want to litigate the transaction. Like they come at it like if there's some adversarial, like if this is some like an adversarial proceeding, and I routinely have to tell these people, I'm like, guys, this is a non-adversarial setting. In this setting, we're all working towards the same goal. They want to sell, we want to buy, like we just want to get to closing. Imagine being in a world, in a setting where what the other side wants is the express opposite of what you want. I mean, that's horrible. So I think that
They come at it way more aggressively.
yes,
because they don't know what it entails.
The non-litigators are more aggressive in transactions than the guys who have suffered.
they've never been punched in the face.
Right, or do some litigation because it's like, man, this is fucking great. In fact, we're allowed to get along. It's almost like only the older lawyers like get along with the other side in litigation. Like you got to be a seasoned lawyer for that shit. If you're a new lawyer, there's like a rule. If you have a lawsuit against somebody else, the other lawyer's just as bad as the other client. Right. You know, and that's how these young lawyers are. They want to fight. Everything is fight. We call them Rambo litigators. Okay, they send you discovery on Friday. Okay, it's like, hey, Friday at 4:30. Here's 30 fucking questions I wanted by 5. And you're like, that's not how that works.
It's similar to. So I have 2 kids that play 2 completely different sports, right? So I have my daughter that plays tennis, right? So all her tournaments are country clubs and this and that, and then I got my son who's been fighting since he was 4. I mean, you know, like literally it's either a jiu-jitsu match or it's wrestling and everything like that. Yeah. You rarely get into any issues at with other parents at wrestling matches. It's very rare. I mean, you'll see it every once in a while because a lot of those people there have gotten their ass kicked at some point. You know what I mean? Now
like you want to think it over.
Dude, you go to a tennis match and I'm not a small guy, you know? Like
no, because I'll sue you.
They come.
You're gonna punch me? I'll sue you.
They come. I've had people approach me, which doesn't happen in the real world. You know what I'm saying? Like they've and got it in my face. You know, like just aggressively. I'm like, look at these motherfuckers. They've literally never. They don't know what it feels like to get punched in the face. They don't know what an ass kicking feels like, and that's why they live in a different world that doesn't. So it's similar to what you're saying there.
Yeah, but I mean, again, so you know, look, I've had the displeasure of doing a few divorces for like dear friends of mine that got divorced, and then they insisted that the divorces would be uncontested and that there wouldn't be any fighting, and of course that never goes the way it is. Right. But yeah, I mean, the older I get, the less I'll go, you know, outside my wheelhouse. I mean, if you call me for a divorce, there's like a 99.99999%
Is that accurate, Cadillac?
That I'm sending you. Yeah, 99.99. When in doubt, we ask Cadillac.
I'm here for the numbers. That's it.
To a dedicated, you know, a lawyer that specializes in family law. You know, sure. I just think that's what you want. You know, it's like if you need knee replacement surgery, you're gonna go to the dentist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not a great idea. You know, like could the dentist, if it were the end of the fucking world and he were the only doctor on the island, could he cut your knee open? And I mean, let's put it this way: he's better equipped than the next guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so between the mortgage broker and the dentist, who do you want performing surgery on you if you're on a deserted island? Well, I would say the dentist.
Now, the limited subset.
Right. Yeah.
Do we have a chance? Do we have a chance? Because, you know, look, I am one of the very few brokers that actually cares about training, right? There's these 100% companies that don't train their people a lot. Not only do we train, but we walk them through it. There's always somebody there with them at the beginning and et cetera, et cetera. Yep. You know, and then we got Richard that we call for stuff all the time. So our realtors are in a bubble where it's kind of hard to fuck things up. They have to completely go off the rails. But that's not necessarily true for other realtors out there, right? I mean, I remember I had a listing of mine, and I had a realtor put in an offer, okay, where she confused the down payment, and I could tell by the way she wrote it, she confused the down payment with the deposit. So it was a $60,000 down payment, but she put it at first deposit, right? I remember I called, so, you know, how many things could go wrong that they lose that $60,000 deposit? It was on a $200,000 townhouse, too. It was there's no need to have 60 grand on deposit.
Aggressive. They were showing that they're committed.
But you can tell when that's the case, when they're showing commitment, and you can tell when I called her, I go, listen to what I'm telling you. Bro. Listen, I don't want you to come to my company because you're going to think that I'm giving you advice just because I'm trying to recruit you. As soon as you finish this transaction here, get the fuck out of there and run. You have no idea the type of mistake that you just made right now, right? You just opened up and you could have potentially lost. So please, I am begging you, go somewhere where they train you. So my point is, and I know FREC is different than DBPR and the whole situation, but is there anything we can do so that the real estate class is not a complete waste of fucking time? And it's actually the course and the exams and everything, that they actually teach you something, that addendums, how to write just real life stuff.
It's fascinating that you brought that up. True story at commission last week on Wednesday. Usually Tuesday's the day that we deal with applicants. Okay, so if you're looking for a license and you have some issue in your past,
Colorful past.
Yeah, Tuesdays we deal with that. Tuesdays we deal with education. So if you have a class that you want to get certified for continuing education, we do that. Wednesday we do what's called the legal appearance docket. So we get like the EDOs, the escrow disbursement order disputes. So when the broker has the escrow and there's a dispute about that, and then we do like the legal cases where licensees are being brought up on, they're being prosecuted for violations of Chapter 475, and those include anything from failing to timely report a conviction. So that happens a lot. The rules require you to report any convictions within 30 days. Okay, so many times people don't do that. The department finds out, they prosecute you. It's usually a slap in the wrist the first time. You're failing to account and deliver, fraud type claims, things like that. You make mistakes. You put the escrow deposit in your account. Things you shouldn't do. Okay, and then at the end we usually have public comment, new business, and sometimes we open for rules. Okay, so right now there's a big push to improve the way that we deal with multiple broker licenses, okay? Because you got these guys now that there's one guy who's got like 107 licenses, and the commission really hates that, okay? So now we're looking at how to improve that, the application form on that, so that we can, the commission and the department gets more info that might be important, like if you're suffering discipline in another jurisdiction or something like that. But then at the end, during public comment, we had somebody come up and say that we needed to do something about the requirements to become a licensee, that we needed to improve top down everything from
100%.
what they teach to the exam to everything else, because we have a lot of agents that really shouldn't be agents.
Shouldn't. But it comes from, they go to companies that shouldn't be in
well,
business.
but by then it's too late. They're already licensed. So
But they
at
still
that
have
point,
they still have to be out there, so they have to go through a company. So if you're a brand new agent, it happens all the time. They go to these 100% commission companies. What incentive does a 100% commission company have to train an agent to do anything?
But that unfortunately,
Anything.
That unfortunately it has been the downward spiral qualitatively of the industry since we went from the days of 50-50 splits with brokers. I mean, it used to be that they could take and give you a test on the legal parameters of getting and maintaining your license, because that's information that you're not going to get about the craft. And so that's the reason why that test could be what it is.
But it's all it is.
I understand, because
It's all it
they expected you to leave and go get trained in your craft from this broker.
Right,
that
so
you're
it's an
gonna work-
outdated thought. They're working from the 1950s. The thought of the 1950s where people actually
but
gave
let
a
me tell
shit.
you what the response was, and here's the problem. I jumped in, I echoed the sentiment right away, and so did a couple of my fellow commissioners. But the problem is, there's this one guy, and he's the man. He's like the sage of the commission right now. He's been on there a long time. Man, he represented the department. I mean, he's been in that world forever. And his name's Randy Schwartz. He's a lawyer. He's an amazing human, and he hears us all, talking, rah, everything's got to change. It's been a disaster, and I even made what would be an unpopular comment for people down here. I said, it's a farce that we offer the exam in Spanish. I go, by the way, I'm a child of Cuban immigrants. But
No, and I agree with it.
But
So
the
am
fact
I.
that you can take the exam in Spanish, to me, is just a miscarriage of justice.
100%.
Okay,
And this is from a guy who was
it's-
born in Cuba.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
feel
100%.
good liberalism and equality run amok.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
because you know what? The forms are not in Spanish. You're not going to fight in Spanish.
You're in the United
You're not
States.
going to go to court in Spanish. I mean,
Yep.
come on, guys. You got to be able to take the test in English.
You got to be able to
I
protect
mean,
the
in
customers.
my view. I mean, obviously that's not the law. We
No,
give
but
it
it's
in
I
Spanish.
100% agree with you on
But
that.
it's ridiculous. And so when we were all finished, Schwartz, who's like, always comes in at the end, he says, all right, he's like, everybody done? Can I just say something? And I said, and we all looked down, and the chairwoman's like, yes, of course. And he says, that all sounds great. That's all beautiful. But if we're not going to get any assistance from the Florida Association of Realtors, we're going nowhere.
Yep.
Okay, we can sit here and we can cry about it all we want, but if we don't have the lobbying and the support from the industry, we're never going to get
Yeah,
it.
but hold on. Wait a second, because I just thought of something right now. We have a FREC or commissioner already, or no?
Yeah.
Chairman,
Vice chairman.
vice chairman. Okay, and we got a gentleman who teaches for the Florida and the National Association of Realtors. I mean, anybody could get it done as you guys.
No,
I mean,
you got to, because you're messing with the money.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
that's the problem.
I mean, the reality
That's
of it
the
is,
problem.
and I hate to say this, especially in some place where it's going to be disseminated like this, but the business model
Right, this
for
is
the
forever.
it is what it is. I mean,
Before you say it.
Especially with these guys. I got a list, like a fucking scroll of places where this got posted the other day. I was almost like, oh my God.
What did I say?
That's a lot of people hearing me say shit.
The reality of it is, I mean, the business model for them is a numbers business.
Mm-hmm.
They're okay. They seem to be okay with the 80% or whatever it is attrition rate every couple of years, and that turnover. It's to make the tent as big as it can possibly be, bring as many people in, and I guess collect the revenue from it in order
know,
to
but-
maintain their lobbying.
but listen, the
business.
part timer. Okay, somebody who this happens all the time. They come in here, and they have a 9 to 5. And they're basically just in here to invest in real estate, which they never fucking do.
Right.
Right. But now they have their cousin that is this is my world. They have their cousin who's buying. And then they tell me, hey, since this is my cousin, can I get a break on our split?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second. So this is your first transaction. You don't know shit. You don't know so much that you don't even know what you don't know.
Right.
Right? Like that's the scary part.
I got to work harder, and you want me to give you a break.
Right. No, I actually have to know. Forget about harder. I got to do the transaction for you.
Yep.
I have to do the transaction for you. Right.
crazy.
Because that's what happens. So that's me because I care and I have an infrastructure that's going to walk you through it and it's going to teach you in the whole situation. But dude, there's these companies out there. They come with the cousin, the deal. Oh, you're in 100. We agree. We're in 100% split. This is your responsibility, not mine.
Figure it out.
So now that person's out there putting in offers, putting deposits, respecting the dates. My ass. Forget about the dates. Forget about inspection period. Forget about financing period. Forget about any of that stuff. And then people lose. And so that's the thing. So yeah, I
By the way,
understand it's part of the business model.
A huge commission pet peeve too is that the department and when I say the department, I mean like the prosecutors. Okay, so like the commission dynamic, you should, well, you've been there, but you should come.
I've been there for another reason.
Yeah.
I do want to go back as a regular
Yeah,
civilian.
you should come because there's the dynamic. The commissioners sit like in front of the room long wise. And
When are
then,
you
like,
going next?
September 12th, 13th. Yeah. And then on to the right of the commission is like division staff. So like the people that work like at the division of real estate, executive director, and those people. And then on the left are the lawyers, our lawyer, and then the government's lawyers. Okay, and these people work for the Florida Department of Business Professional Regulation, and they're the ones that file the complaints. They prosecute the cases against licensees that make mistakes. Okay, and many of they're on the commission. There are 2 industry members, and the rest of them, 2 consumer members, and the rest are industry members. So a consumer member is like me, and Schwartz, the other lawyer. We're not licensees. Okay, so we're consumer members. The rest of the commissioners are brokers typically. Okay, but they're licensees. Okay, and so the other licensee members of the commission, they are annoyed. It's a huge pet peeve of theirs that there is what they view as insufficient broker accountability. We almost never get the broker in there with the agent. So you get these agents that are brought up.
You know
on
what?
these-
100%. I
on
agree
these
with that.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific.
Where's the guy who's
charges.
responsible to train you?
Yeah. And the brokers, listen, never mind that they're never charged, okay, which is what these commissioners feel they should be, that there should be more prosecutions under like the broker supervisory.
But I work under
rules.
that. I work under that. Like, listen, this is my responsibility.
Yeah. Oh no, there's
on
a
you, yeah.
and so
100%.
not only do we rarely have cases where we're bringing in the broker, okay, unless the broker themselves is the
Part of the transaction or
the
whatever.
perpetrator, let's call it, right, or the alleged the respondent is what we call it in that setting. They're not defendants or respondents, okay, and so. We had a big case this past meeting that it's going to be very interesting to see how it works out. But the broker was there, and so
Voluntarily.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And he's among the state's very best. I mean, he's a well-known individual, and you know, it's refreshing to see the broker there, and you can just tell right away. And by the way, and I was telling every Tuesday we have dinner with the commission, and I was telling these you know, my colleagues that when I go up to Orlando, it's super refreshing to deal with the agents that come there and the licensees that come to the room. Like usually on day 2 for the legal appearance docket, different offices from different parts of the state will come in, and many times the individual or the community-based realtor associations will come in. So you'll get Orlando, they call it Aura. You know, they get Orlando in there, you get Daytona in there, you get, you know, the Seacoast people, and so they come in to watch, and it's like a big deal. They want to come and they want to see. And the quality of agent, once you cross the Miami-Dade Broward line, like the more north you go, the more serious these people take the business. And I was talking to them the other day, and I was saying, I'd be willing to bet.
We should sever South Florida from Florida?
Well, I mean, listen, in some instances that would be good and bad, but I'll tell you what, and we can ask Cadillac for the statistical probability
Cadillac,
of this,
please.
but I would be willing to bet that 90% of the part-time agents are in Miami-Dade County.
Yeah.
You know, like the more north you go, if you're a licensee, if you're a realtor, a sales associate, or a broker, that's more likely to be your full-time occupation. That's what you do for a living. You know,
you're respected as such.
Right. And down here, it's like, you know, like the classic Carlos Gutierrez story that you love. The guy's getting a haircut. At the time, he was the president of Miami Association of Realtors. So he would tell you within 5 seconds of meeting you that too, because he was very proud of it. And he's getting a haircut, and he says that the barber says to him, "What do you do?" And that he says, "I'm a realtor." And the barber's like, "Oh, me too."
Exactly.
So I can give you guys some stats on that, actually, if you want. And this is something I do in all the classes that I teach. I go all over the country, and I ask agents, not about part-time agents, I ask them, what percentage of agents would you say are bad agents? And so you would think, you get into the northern part of the state, you know, these places where people, Wyoming, Montana, the number I get no matter where I go is the same. 80%.
Is what?
Bad agent.
Oh.
So 4 out of 5 agents think other agents are bad agents.
Yeah.
Which means, because my point always is, when you walk into the room with the customer, you're at a negative perception. They have a bad perception of real estate agents in general.
Yeah.
So I've got to work my way out of that hole. I've got to negotiate my way out of that hole.
Same thing, car salesmen, lawyers.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we're definitely right in the bottom. So I have to, before.
Yeah, but lawyers have to go through shit
but
to get that. They have to like.
I know, but they're just seen as fucking shitty people.
Yeah.
There's a couple of moving pieces to this, right? What's the training typically? Maybe not you guys, but what do they teach agents? Go in there and ask questions. Ask open-ended questions. Get them to be your friend. I don't ask questions. I make assumptions on the way in. I make assumptions on the way in because this is not my first rodeo. So it's not my first rodeo. I know they're interested in the market. They want to know what's going on right now. They want to know what the outlook is for what they're getting ready to do. I don't need to ask a bunch of questions, because before I ask questions, I want to make sure I've made the case that I deserve the truth. And so this is kind of the problem. And this is another thing that I talk about in the classes with people about, to your point about how the license is. And it doesn't matter where I go. Even the states where the licensure is more complicated, you know, I say, you go to class, you take a test, you pass the test, they hand you a license, they smack in the button, say, go sell real estate. And you turn around, you're like, but I don't know how. Like, you didn't show me how to do it. And you got to go figure it out on your own.
Right, but it's also unfair of the state. Right, and I know it's different. I know FREC is different than the DBPR, and the state is different than, you know. But it's also unfair that you get these guys out there, you get the barber, right, and you get them out there, and you get them licensed. Then they go to a 100% company. Then they put in an offer, and they lose the client's deposit, and now they're there, to lose their license, and then it's all their fault. I mean,
no, I agree.
I think that the system, and I hate to agree on. You know, I think it's everybody's responsibility, and I get that. But man, it is a broken system.
It is very much a broken system. Unfortunately, the financial incentive is not lined up with those that have the
right.
So when I make these recruiting calls, I have a rule of thumb, right? If the first question they ask me on the phone is what my commission split is, click
buy.
Yep. And it's hard to do that because you're like, fuck, you know, maybe they could sell, and you're kind of throwing away money. But if you're not asking how's the training, when is the training, who's training me, and what support do I have to support that training, dude, you're if all you care about is getting 100% commission, man, go ahead. Don't come here.
And that's the
You
thing
know?
that blows my mind, right? People spend a week getting this license. Let's call it a 7 day.
I spent a couple of months. I had a
6
couple
day week
failures.
taking the class, right? It is what it is. And then they're so unwilling to in any way take the two scarce resources of life, or time and money, and invest it back in. You talk about going to get a law degree. What was the cost of that? And people are more than willing to go to college.
Ask Susie reminds me every day.
Constantly, right? It's a thing, right?
much.
You spend this money to take and go get a degree in business or whatever, and then you wind up with a job that has nothing to do with it on the back end side, but you're okay with spending all that money to get that degree. Whereas you're actually in the industry where you're making money today, and you won't take and spend the time or money to take and get trained to learn what the hell you're doing.
Okay, so can we at least make the continuing education within 6 months and add actual shit there, like real content?
Well,
you know?
I'll send
right?
it- I'll
Maybe
send-
that's a solution.
I'll send
Because
it-
the cash register is still ringing. You don't think there's a solution, Richard?
I send a shout out.
I mean, no, I do. I think that the solution is the same one there is to like a lot of the world's problems. Like you need a massive purge. Like 8 of every 10 needs to just be vanished. And then you can take a small population and and fix the rest. I mean, you can't these massive changes, it's just too much inertia. It's like trying to turn a cruise ship is going fucking downhill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not. Again, the incentive's not there, and that's why when Schwartz said that, I mean, I could tell my balloon flew away. I was like, "Oh, I guess we're fucked. I guess we're never, because like they're not." And by the way, the lawyer for the Florida Associations of Realtors was there. She's usually there on day 2. She comes to watch, especially when we have rules. When we're opening up rule workshops, which we're doing now, they come in and they're very there. They give their opinion. Okay, they want to give language. They want to do all these things, and Schwartz said it, and she turned and she gave the perfect lawyer answer. She's like, obviously, I'm not authorized to agree or even comment on the matter, but hey, I'll take it back to the powers that be. And we're like, yeah, it's like the emperor going,
yeah, done.
So, I mean, it's tough, but I mean, again, it's in my view, the good and the bad of it is, by the way, same thing happens with lawyers. Okay. Like, I mean, I know it's hard because you got to go to law school and then you got to take the bar exam, but I mean, again, you and I know some lawyers that it's like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
Well, and so what happens is that, unfortunately,
Do I name any names or no?
No.
I think
I'll get you in trouble. I want to get me in trouble.
I think,
Don't help me, bro. I don't need any help here.
I think there's a kind of a yay and nay to all of this, in the sense that I was very lucky, and I want to take and send a shout out to a guy that was very helpful early in my career. The guy that gave me my post license was a gentleman by the name of Rick Birch, who's been with Miami
Cuban guy.
Associate. Absolutely, and super cool guy. But he had this dictated class that he had to do, but it was the extra stuff that he put in there. I can never forget running with the big dogs, how to actually do this business the right way, like the extra supplemental stuff. That's the stuff that actually mattered.
Yeah, the value.
And the problem winds up being that that's not part of the actual curriculum. And I don't know how it hurts the Association of Realtors for that part of it to be in. Like, I get there's a bandwidth limitation, right? And that's the big thing. Like, when I started in real estate, I try to keep this front of mind. When I came in, I was overwhelmed by all the things that I needed to learn. Like, all right, there's the MLS, there's the contract, there's listing agreement, and like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's getting all dumped on you, and you need to be good at this right away, or you really can't do this business. And so it took 2 or 3 months.
Unless you're in Dade County.
Unless you're in Dade, which I was.
Contraire.
Hey, you know what? But Richard, you know what? Hey, listen, in summary, because we got to end it up. We've been like an hour and a half already, or an hour and 15. But listen, the maybe forcing the brokers to show up every time there's a fucking issue. That's the way you start getting these guys to actually put. Because I tell you what, start taking a tally on how many of the people that show up are from these 100% commission companies.
Yeah.
Start taking a mental tally.
Oh no, we hate. And by the way, the industry members especially, because they're much more versed in like these dynamics, but they hate team advertising. They hate like the team concepts. They hate. Hate is a strong word. They are
Dislike
displeased.
intensely.
They're displeased with the state of the industry with these things. Lack of boner.
Lack of boners probably is not an.
The lack of boner is not a problem. The lack of broker accountability, big problem. The 100% commission companies.
I think even if you just were to make it that they had to come, the inconvenience factor would take and
I agree.
create
I think
some more.
that's the way. I think that's the way. Because if you got, and all of a sudden you're there 3 times, right? And you start recognizing there's an issue there.
Oh yeah.
Now it's not the agent's fault. You know what I mean? It's the broker's fault. So, all right,
You
guys,
should come next time.
I am. I really am. I'm definitely. It'd be good to show up as a guy who's not there begging for his license.
The security guard is my friend. I will have you escorted out if you refrain from.
Yeah. So you guys know. So you're in on the joke. When I first got my license, I had a little. I was a colorful past, a couple marijuana charges and stuff like that. So I had to go and beg the commission.
Which nowadays we don't even give a shit about. We see marijuana, we're like, oh, he's approved.
Did I tell you the story on and we'll end it with this. So I get there, I get denied for my first time, right? So I present my case, and I was 20 or 19 or something, and they're like, well, denied. And then
Denied for license for broker.
for licensure. Right. Back then it was a serious marijuana
Yeah.
and I had cultivation, so it was like a little
Right.
different, right? So I go in the second
Jesus was
time.
an agronomist.
Yeah.
Agricultural exploits.
Actually, on the newspaper article, when I got caught doing it, it said Jesus was using his green thumb for something other than growing roses. I have that article somewhere. So then I go the second time, and I'm like, dude, this is. I remember. So the real estate, since I got out of high school, is all I really wanted to do. So it's not like I wanted to try it. This is it. So it was like, dude, this is stopping my life. I needed to get this license. So I get there the second time. It was like 6 months later. I couldn't go. I had to wait like 6 months, and I go the second time, and I plead my case and this and that, and they're like, they go for the vote, and they're like, no, nay or bah. I'm like, whoa, no. I literally said like, no, guys, listen. This is as good as I get. like I'm not. You stopping this for another year is not going to do anything. This is it. Like this is like I'm begging you. Like dude. They all start laughing like uncontrolled, and they're like, all right, you got it. Like it wasn't even purposely done. I'm like, bro, this is it. Like
No, but the story gets better than this though.
Oh, second time?
Yeah, because no. But now finish. So then
Right.
Jesus now is going to go to become a broker.
Right.
Okay,
but then I gotta shit on your partner.
And by then, no, it doesn't matter. You don't have to say
No,
names.
I do.
And
I don't
then-
have to say
and
names,
then-
but I
and
have to
then-
say it's
and
your
then
partner.
So he's now going to be a broker. Okay, and I'll never forget that he wants me to review his application, like that he's going to submit, and he wants me to review it, of course, yesterday. Okay, but the day he's emailing it to me, I happen to be in Disney, dude, with my family. It was just my wife at the time. So I didn't want to do it right then and there, nor could it be submitted. It was like a Saturday. Okay, so I'm like, dude, why don't you just wait for me to get back to the office on Monday? I'll take care of it. No, fuck that. He didn't like that answer, so he calls my former law partner, and there's a question. It's question number one. It's question number one on the application,
gonna be fun.
and it's amazing. And it's like, have you ever been convicted, arrested, of a crime, this and this and that, and it's like, and then it tells you, like, it's like,
Presidential
P.S. you must disclose whether you pled out, whether you've been pardoned by the President of the United States, you must still disclose. Okay. Jesus talks to my former partner, and somehow they arrive, despite that language, that the right answer was not to disclose. Was not to disclose that his prior convictions. Never mind the.
I also already went through it. It's already been disclosed. There was no new ones.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
Even if you've been pardoned by the president was not sufficiently clear. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Sometimes you just can't remove the ambiguity enough. Okay? Sometimes there's no way to fix it. Okay? And so this guy says no. And of course, bro, he gets brought up for hearing, and he's got to have a hearing. It's not because we've now found the non-disclosures.
Did you go with me?
No, are you crazy?
He did.
No one did.
Oh, I went and I figured it out.
No one did. I tried to get you to hire my other friend, and
That's
I got
right.
quoted
And
you 10 grand. That's
and
why
I
you
told
hate
to
him.
go fuck- Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why you hate
right.
him.
And then I went and I did it myself, and I got it.
So he goes and he
don't
does it
need an
himself.
attorney.
But what's funny about this is that when he goes up there, and they're giving him the third degree about, hey, how come you didn't disclose this? Is not. He tells the story. And again, I would have loved to have been there for this, because we get some colorful characters up there. But I could just imagine this guy. He was like, I spoke to my lawyer. I spoke to one of my lawyers, and the guy said, you have to disclose it. He even pointed out. even if you've been pardoned by the president of the United States, but I spoke to the other lawyer, and he was like, no, you don't have to disclose it. I like that answer better, so I went with that one. And fuck, here I am, you know? So, I mean, I fucked up. What do you want me to do? And you ended up getting it.
I ended up getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm definitely going to the next one. All right, guys. All right, another episode.
Good times.
Anything
In
else?
the books.
Next time when
anything
we get together, it'll be 34.
else? Yes.
Just so you know.
30. I'll remember that because this is Larry Bird 33. Larry Bird I'm a huge fan of Larry Bird.
All right, I gotta go back to work.
Yeah, me too. All right, guys.